talk is from Dave Fuller from MD Anderson, and his talk is, read up here because he's changing on me, developing informatic opportunities within radiation oncology training at the MD Anderson Cancer Center.
Yeah, so thanks to Dan, the organizers. I'm really excited to speak to you all today. Here's an obligatory slide that I won't leave up very long. I'm really interested in informatics education specifically, and it's really thrilling that Dan's put together a community that is able to kind of talk about these disparate needs that are yet so in common. For those of y'all who aren't informaticists, this idea of informatics as a very broad science involving data and information is really kind of axiomatic. And there's this idea that informaticists as a profession are supposed to help translate kind of disjointed data in systems that are non-uniform into some semblance of something that has meaning, and then eventually the kind of knowledge and wisdom applications you've seen from the previous speakers in terms of real applicable stuff to patient care. And I interacted with this. I'm a physician, but I have an imaging physics PhD, and our imaging physics curriculum forced us to take an informatics class, which happened to be taught by Ira Kalett, who's this giant in the field of informatics, but also was the guy who came up with the first treatment planning system in radiation oncology. And all of the examples of this book were RADONC examples. And so you'd see about like lymph node mapping as an ontologic task. All these things were really cool. And so it sucked me into this field so much that I thought, after I'd finished residency and I was looking for something to do as a junior faculty person, they said there's this new specialty in American Board of Medical Specialties that you can grandfather into in medical informatics. I was like, well, why the hell not? So I did this as part of my K Award application and really got stoked about it. So I'm one of these weird guys who is a subspecialty certified clinical informaticist in addition to being a radiation oncologist. Now, where this really has applicability now is we're seeing this huge growth in the technical aspects of the field, and the informatics problems in radiation oncology really coming to the fore. And this is a recent publication, I would say notably led in Radiation Oncology Journal by physicists, that outlines really some of these problems that are hitting us today. And just as a highlight, how do you integrate these databases for data science and create tools for treatment options like you just saw in previous few presentations. But the one that really jumped out was this need for expertise in informatics among radiation oncology professionals. And this is a huge unmet need because we don't even have formalized ideas. If you look at what the ABR requires or ACGME requires, it's just very cursory what informatics information we actually need to know, but we know we need to know something. And so there are these constant calls for more education without really knowing what it is. And this is hard because informatics is a very diffuse specialty. Within biomedical informatics, there's kind of four main chains: bioinformatics, imaging informatics, this is where I live, clinical informatics, and public health informatics. And you can break these into different subgenres. So if you do biomolecular imaging, that encompasses these two subdisciplines pretty easily. And if you do pharmacogenomics, well, that's a mixture. Reed Thompson, who's a friend of mine from Oregon, does pharmacogenomics and bioinformatics. And if you do consumer health, that interfaces in a different area. And so things like health informatics are not necessarily the same, but they're very much under the umbrella of biomedical informatics. So tagging what we're supposed to know in an already busy radiation oncology curriculum gets really overloading really fast. And Adam Dicker, in a recent publication in JCO Clinical Informatics, had a survey of department chairs, and they all felt basically what we all feel, I think, which is that we have absolutely insufficient training for residents in bioinformatics among genomics and immunology. So everybody says, if you're a chairman, you need more training in that. And if you ask residents in Aero, they'll tell you, even the ones who are currently in especially, but then the ones who are out sometime as well, that it's absolutely insufficient the amount of training you got in bioinformatics. And this echoes what a lot of us find. And they always say, I'd be very interested in taking formal training courses in this subject. But we all know that getting formal training courses into the curriculum is just really hard because we're trying to teach you how to read film so you don't kill people. So with my buddy Program DOS, we decided that we would pilot something which was a very focal program, not necessarily widespread, not additional to the curriculum for interested trainees. So we came up with an idea of having a focal informatics curriculum, an individualized training plan for those folks that we wanted to build as those kind of superstars of next year in rad-onc informatics. And we were fortunate / lucky enough to get funding from NIBIB. And so we have these 2 spots a year where folks come in, take a formal radiation oncology informatics curriculum, supplement that with skill-specific sub-informatics domains. So if you want to be a bioinformaticist, you're taking different curriculum than if you want to be an imaging informaticist. But we tailored those programs to the individual learner, and then had a mechanism where these folks had some small amounts of money for very simple projects, with the commitment that they would eventually hit into a K award, and eventually then hopefully further or launch them into a faculty position. And this is the structure of that. It allows both individual residents who are in Holman pathway, it allows residents who are not in Holman pathway, and allows fellows this kind of integrated approach to training so that it's not as painful as if they were trying to hodgepodge these training modules together. But it does take a significant amount of extra time, and it does take quite a bit of work to get all the approvals institutionally to pull this off. So that's, so far we've been really fortunate. We have 2 great trainees. We're just kind of launching. Our first year is underway. We don't have any results. One is an imaging informatics focused person. The other is a straight clinical informatics focused person. And so our expansion this next year will include resident applicants because the funding timeline hit after we picked our resident class. But the hope is that we can eventually make this a track that is available for residents who aren't part of the NIH program. So you can participate in a module even if you're not necessarily interested in putting out a K award. Well, our next step is really to figure out how we can get this into our larger curriculum. So we've taken a model from the pathology informatics folks called FIRE, this Foundation, Immersion, Refinement, Expertise. And it's an idea that we start with kind of cursory, initial didactic education, move to practical projects, and eventually real-time engagement at an expertise level that gets you on the, an AMIA committee or an RSNA or Astro Informatics committee. And with Reed Thompson and Abby Berman and Charles Thomas, we published an editorial about Kent and Adam's paper that lays this out with a radiation oncology curriculum that Oregon and MD Anderson plan to implement shortly. And the idea is we would take these kinds of ideas, start with a core ACGME curriculum, build out online modules, and eventually transition to learner-based, individualized mentor expertise building. Where we're also looking to go potentially in the future is something that Charles Thomas and the group at Oregon have, which is an informatics fellowship attached to a rad-onc program. So instead of just coming through rad-onc informatics as a stream of training, we would integrate that with clinical informaticists coming into the rad-onc space, where it's kind of truly synergistic learning experience. So MD Anderson is in the process of attempting to kind of engage and replicate what the Oregon guys have done, and then Reed and Charles are trying to figure out if they can implement a smaller version of what we've been able. So we're really stoked about this, but obviously this is a kind of a baby. It's really nascent, and so part of what I'd like to do is, if you guys can on the webpage, any ideas or advice would be super appreciated, because we're trying to figure out how to make this better and more effective. But we'd like to find some way to identify this as a mechanism for these online modules in self-paced learning, additionally with other folks from other places, because even a place as big as MD Anderson doesn't have all this expertise in-house in our department. So if you have informatics folks or folks who are in informatics related fields, please contact me, because we're looking for folks who might be able to create a small module on their area of expertise or interest as well. So thanks everybody for your time, and I'm happy to take questions.